welcome to the Arkansas debut of Backpack Full of Cash. On behalf of Save Our Schools and Grassroots Arkansas, my name is Vincent Tolliver, and we are thrilled to offer you this main event. In a moment, we will begin the film. I'd like to say that this film is important for several reasons. Primarily, it puts in stark perspective why charter school expansion is pernicious, and it lays bare what happens when charter school expansion attacks school districts across the country. What you should know about this film is it focuses on Philadelphia School District, which is ground zero for charter school expansions, and it talks about the things that the Philadelphia School District went through, and also it highlights how legislatures are enacting laws that support charter school expansion. Public schools, despite the millions of dollars spent on marketing campaigns to tell us that they are failing, is simply not true. There are millions of dollars spent on campaigns informing us that public schools are failing, and that is false. It's a farce. It is quite the reverse. We are in a time, in an era, where public schools not only are not failing, but we are seeing the highest graduation numbers that we've ever seen, and we have seen the highest test scores that we have ever seen. So you should know public schools are not failing at all, despite what we are seeing through multi-million-dollar marketing campaigns. We have three objectives after you see this film. We hope that you are informed. Then we hope you become angry. And then three, we hope that you are moved to action. We would also like to thank Metropolitan Tech class in the Little Rock School District for the videography this evening. We also would like to thank Philander Smith College, and we would also like to recognize the SGA president of Philander Smith College, who's the only person we will recognize tonight. That young man there, Mr. Williams, stand up and wave to the crowd. That is the SGA president of Philander. He has helped us out, and we appreciate him. Everyone who has signs, could you please stand? Thank you. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, we are thrilled and privileged to present the Arkansas debut of Backpack Full of Cash.
How much would it cost to have this film shown in places like houses of worship, before a football game, and at a nightclub? How much would it cost? I'm willing to try to raise the money to get the film available for those audiences to see it.
Well, I think we need to show this film to everyone. Today, we were able to show this film from generous donations. The SHOT Foundation and the Alliance to Reclaim Our Schools are offering people, communities, schools, the opportunity to show this film, and we were able to contact them, and they worked with us to provide this film. And so I think reaching out to them, and also we contact them and then let them know what we want to do, and then they work with us to make sure that it happens. So we just need to find out exactly where and when, and work with those institutions to bring it back so we can actually do that.
Hi, my name is Teresa Gordon. I'm the president of Little Rock Education Association, and I just wanted to say that we are also hosting a screening. I didn't want to advertise it because I didn't want it to interfere with y'all's screening tonight, but as many people know, tonight was elementary open house, so we knew that a lot of people wouldn't be able to be here tonight. We're partnering with the Arkansas Education Association to host another screening October 9th at the Ron Robinson Theater, and I will begin advertising that tomorrow. And I encourage everyone that's here to go out and talk about it with people that you know and encourage them to come to that screening. We actually are bringing in the producers for that screening, and they will host a question and answer discussion afterward. So please look for that and sign up for tickets, and encourage people you know to sign up for tickets. That being said, I wanted to maybe start the discussion a little bit. We actually found out about this film last year at the Network for Public Education Conference, which is the conference that Diane Ravitch, who was in the film, puts on every year. And we have a lot of discussions there. I met Gigi Brown at that conference. I met Diane Ravitch. Lots of education fighters are there. And, you know, the charter school dilemma has been around for a while, even though it's fairly new to Arkansas. And I think that the question that the community, as well as the teachers and everybody else involved, is going to have to ask themselves, when are we going to all come together to stand up for our children and to demand that what our children need is given? Because this, as you can see with the film, this is not an Arkansas issue. It's not a Little Rock issue. This is a national issue. And it has been set up from the beginning of testing to demoralize and demean public education and to take resources away from our children, especially our children of highest need. And the only way that it's ever going to stop is for everyone to come together. The teachers, the religious leaders, the city leaders, the state leaders, the parents, everybody. And I just wonder, how do we see ourselves going forward in doing that? Because I know that sometimes we have our kids' best interests at heart, but agendas get in the way. And, you know, we retreat to our corners and we defend our agendas instead of focusing on our children. And we have got to, I think, get past that and refocus ourselves so that we can take this kind of information and we can create a movement to go forward. And I just wonder how y'all see us doing that.
That's excellent. I think the thing that I took away from this is that we have to change the narrative. We have to tell a new story about public education. It is a deliberate and intentional action to make our schools and our children as these failing institutions and failing people. And you know, as we saw in the film, that's not true. But it's a way to create this story of something that's broken and that we have to change and we have to fix. But instead of trying to do improvements, they call this reform, and the reform is based on all these things that have been proven to not work. And so I think for us, we have to go out and demand that people start saying the truth. And I mean, if we look at Little Rock, we had 6 schools out of 48 that were considered failing, and they took over the entire district and labeled the district as failing. And then we have to decide, what are we going to start measuring our schools? How are we going to measure our schools? Are we the only way to measure schools based on test scores, based on these numerical indices? There are so many other ways to measure schools and to decide what's a good school and what's not the best school for your child. So a school may be a good school, but not right for your child. And then I think the third thing, we have to change this conversation around choice. This idea that, you know, what if the choice is I want to go to a good school in my neighborhood? What about that choice? No one talks about the fact that we should be allowed to have good, thriving schools in our own communities. If we can walk our children to school and have communities in our neighborhoods that have great schools, that is the choice that I want to have, and I think most people want to have that choice. So we have to change the narrative and start talking about these issues in a different manner.
And we have to be less selective about who we want to challenge. In 2005, when the Democratic-controlled legislature decided to forsake $100 million, most of which was slated for public education, we didn't have this kind of outcry. We didn't have this kind of outcry when in the Obama administration there was a lot of efforts and a lot of money put toward testing and not more organic education. And so I know that, you know, we're in the midst of a crisis, but Betsy DeVos is no worse than Arnie Duncan, honestly, in the Department of Education. And so, you know, we have to be less selective and understand that when it comes to our kids, that we don't have any permanent friends or enemies. We only have permanent interest, which is our children.
I would add just a few things to Ms. Gordon's comment. One is that if we wait on everybody to come together, we're just going to keep waiting. So that's just not going to happen. And the second thing is that here in Little Rock, one problem we have, and maybe I disagree with my friends here, is that for years Little Rock School District has not been educating our poorest kids. Now I know on the whole, public schools across the country, as the video said, are doing well. My kids are doing great in public school. I had a great public school experience. But here in Little Rock, we just have not been educating our most vulnerable kids, and they still cannot read. And so, from my perspective, what to do to move forward is that we all have to go to bat for those kids. My kids know how to read. My kids are going to be taken care of. So we need more people to say, look at these reading scores at this high school, at this middle school. Something is not right. Little Rock School District, you are responsible. What are we going to do differently? One attraction that local people have for charter schools is that people in Little Rock School District have been indifferent for years. We have nepotism plaguing the district, and we've accepted it for so long. And so, to my mind at least, it's understandable why people have chosen other alternatives.
My only issue with that is that I think we focus so much on outputs and these scores and these numbers, but not the same on what's the input and how are we educating students, the resources and the supports that we're giving them. That is the most important thing, and taking into consideration all the different levels and baggage and skills that children bring into the classroom. So the scores are definitely important, but we cannot forget about the fact that there are so many things. These aren't factories, these aren't robots, these are people. And these people, you have to provide them with resources and supports to make sure that they get to the places that we want them to be. And most of the conversation is always around that score. It's for-profit, bottom line. And that's even in our traditional public schools.
My name is Wendell Griffin. I appreciate you having the movie. I think, however, we need to be very blunt about what is not being said. This issue is really about race.
Absolutely.
So let's call it what it is. It's about race.
Right.
And until we admit that and say it, we will not begin to address it. It's about race and it's about greed. Most of my problems with the movie is that while it said good things about what it said, it didn't say one important thing. How are charter schools financed? Most people don't know. How many of you know how charter schools are financed? How many of you know what a hedge fund is? Good. Charter schools are really driven by the hedge fund industry. They're not driven by the education industry at all. And what you and I need to understand is, what we need to tell people is, people get into hedge funds if you have $500,000 of wealth to spend. That's the bottom investment. You put the fund together, and then you have a fund manager who's paid an extraordinary profitable fee, higher than any other fee in investment banking, to manage the fund. hedge funds invest in good investments. Charter schools are a good investment because they take public buildings, public money, and then pay low wages and then charge people to go to schools, charging the state. And the hedge fund gets a fee. This is what's going on, and it happens with black kids and poor kids. It doesn't happen in wealthy communities. And so if we don't talk about race and this money issue, we're missing the whole point. Yes, reading scores need to improve, but that's nothing new, okay? Let's not get it twisted. The problem is that this was not a problem in Little Rock with charter schools until there became apparent that there was going to be a majority black district with a majority black board, and all of a sudden we had a movement. And so from the governor, the state legislature, there has been a movement to run this. You don't have a big charter school movement in Northwest Arkansas, where the Waltons actually are. You don't have a big charter school movement in Jonesboro. You don't have a big charter school movement in El Dorado, where the Murphys actually are. You have a charter school movement in the Delta and in Central Arkansas. And so one of the shameful things is, in the 60th anniversary of the Little Rock Central desegregation, we are actually having a conversation about the resegregation of education based on the racism of riches. If we don't talk about that, we're not talking about the real deal. Please, we don't have time to get it messed up. I respect the need to have all the preachers here, but if you wait to have all the preachers and all the nightclub owners and all the people, what is it? Jesus will be coming back.
Absolutely. And the case in point, there's a charter school in this city managed by a charter management organization, the founder of which was a former employee of the Charter Growth Fund, which is a hedge fund funded by the Walton Foundation. It is the most failing school in the city of Little Rock. It is the most failing school in the city of Little Rock, and year after year, all they have to say is, but look who we have here, and look what we have to deal with. And this is a charter management organization that began with these words before the State Board of Education: we can run a school cheaper than anybody is doing it. So these kids are getting a Dollar Tree education, and they're getting away with it.
And if we're not careful, the preachers, because every preacher got a Bible wants to charter school.
Hello?
Let's just say it, okay?
So indeed,
Let's call it out. So if your preacher wants to charter school, you need to fire your preacher.
I mean, that's, you hit the nail on the head, as they say. I mean, a lot of this around race, it's about a perception of black children, brown children, low-income children, and this idea that they can be bought and sold and that they're just commodities. And the sad part is that a lot of times people have this idea that poor parents and black parents, they don't care about their children. But that's one of the farthest things from the truth. These parents want, and so they've a good education. They're being exploited. They're basically being exploited, and their children are receiving far inferior education. And the parents, because they're told, because of this perception, that this is a better option for you, and that they create this idea and this narrative that charter schools are so great and that your school is so bad. And so basically these parents are being, fooled and exploited. And it's really sad, because you have people who want what's best for their children, and it's so easy to dismiss them and throw them out as if they don't even matter.
those young black graduates from competing with white folks.
Right.
So what you do is you tear up the education system and you criminalize blacks. And so you have the criminalization of the drug situation. It's kind of amazing. We got a lot of compassion for opioids right now. Okay? And then what you do is you tear up the education system. So what has happened is that as the education system in urban and rural black areas has gone down, opportunities for good jobs have also gone down. When opportunities for good jobs go down, always there is more conflict. When people cannot do well, people do not behave well. That's just social. And so what you do is by tearing up the education system, you drive, it's amazing, you have more cops and fewer teachers. You pay cops and won't pay teachers. You close music and you build more jails. That is not an accident. It is deliberate. And if we do not say it, we will find ourselves arguing about how we got here. This is not new. This is just the new Jim Crow rebooted.
I first wanted to just thank everybody who has come tonight, but I particularly want to ask all of the students that are here to please stand up so that we can acknowledge that you're here tonight. All students, please stand. If you still go to school, please stand up. As you're standing, part of why we're applauding you is not just because most of you came here because your parents brought you here. And so we want to applaud the parents as well. So let's do that. But many of you all came here because you had an interest and are intrigued in what's going on with the Little Rock School District and what's going on with your friends. And so I just want to ask, are there any students that saw something or heard something tonight that you feel like you want to offer a comment about or ask a question about? Okay, that's fine.
Mine too get tired of hearing me say this stuff all the time.
That's fine. And then the last reason why I wanted to ask you all to keep standing is because on September the 23rd, from 1 o'clock until about 9 o'clock, we will be having some activities that will include each one of you. Everybody in here is pretty much familiar with who the Little Rock Nine are, is that correct? Okay. Well, we have two that live in Little Rock, Thelma Mothershed Ware and Elizabeth Eckford. And both of them, we asked them, how could we truly honor you? And they told us, you can honor us by allowing us to speak with, talk to, and help support students in the Little Rock School District. That over the several years that we've been back here in Little Rock, we've never been asked to come to the Little Rock School District and speak. That all the years that and all of the things that the city of Little Rock has done to lift us up, they don't open their doors and welcome us into the very schools with which they receive a lot of money and finances for celebrating us. And so I'm asking you not only to come on the 22nd just to physically be there, but I want you to get a chance to really meet and come to know Miss Elizabeth Eckford and Mrs. Thelma Mothershed Ware, because they have pearls of wisdom not only to share with you, but they want to learn from you as well. And then we want to make sure that everybody that's in this room, if you haven't gotten a flyer, one of the ways that we can make what Reverend Griffin pointed out to us no longer an issue. One of the ways that we can really work towards addressing the true issues of race and classism in our city and our state is if we rally together and we act together to dismantle those divides that continue to keep us separated. So we're asking you to come out. Students, you can sit down, I'm sorry. But I did want to ask, I know that everybody has been engaged in the movie, and the movie was pretty heavy in some ways, and in other ways there was some shock. But we really want to hear from you, and so please don't be shy. We have a few more minutes left. If you have a question or a comment, please come forward. We'd love to hear it.
My name is McAdoo, and I am also, other than a citizen of Little Rock, a parent who have children in the district. And I have, and I've said this many times, I have fought for the school district, and I fought against the school district. And the school district itself puts you in a very peculiar place in the sense that I'm an advocate for public schooling. I'm an advocate because I guess maybe my Christian background, or I don't know what it is, my insanity, thinks that every child should have an opportunity to be educated. That's what public education does. Now, my wife and I are not wealthy, but anywhere we wanted to put our kids, I think we would have put our kids. And that's what we did. And we did have a choice. And we put them in public schools. But we want that choice to be a strong choice and not be diluted by monies going out. And the other thing I wanted to say is, as an educator, and my wife tells me, talk as a parent, as a resident, not as an educator, but as an educator, I think that by testing being as the focus that it is, the biggest protest is against the test. Whether that's a boycott of it, whether that's providing an alternative means of measurement, I think that's the biggest way to combat, because that makes people recognize your strength when their money is affected. And that test does that. I think that, to your point, and I just wanted to mention, yes, I've had to fight against the school district, but again, I found some of the best teachers and educators in places I've worked in. And I've worked in alternative school. And to the judge's point, they eliminated my position. I'm an art teacher. The alternative school with the most vulnerable population of youth in Little Rock got rid of music, art, PE, oral communication, and gym, and double blocked them in math and English. So that these pupils who needed an alternative environment to be educated received less of what they wanted to engage in and double of what they didn't. And so the arts and the electives were the first to go at Hamilton. And now they're at a point where they're closing that, and it's a mess. But anyway, yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here and caring. I hope this is just a beginning. I'm a retired educator. out of Little Rock and Pulaski County. I've spent a little bit of time at the legislative hearings of the Educational Committee of the House of Representatives. I don't know how many of you know this, but there was a bill run through that lowered the standards so Key could be hired. I was there when they lowered the standards for the state school board members. No, the state charter. There's a state charter school board. And they changed the rules as to who could be on that so Key could appoint who he wanted on that committee. We have got to start showing up. I saw the lobbyists. I've spoken to the lobbyists for charter schools. They are there. The Walton Foundation is there. We have got to start showing up in those committee meetings and making ourselves heard as well as everywhere else. Thank you.
My name is Roger Robinson. I am an educator. That's one of my students. I didn't have to do this job. I make enough money. That is my reason for doing what I do. I have a class of 40 students, excuse me. Each and every one of them, I want to pour myself into them so that they can succeed. I've done my job as far as working and providing for my family. These young people have that yet to come. Here's the thing, not everyone, I don't care how you fix it up, not everyone is going to be able to afford to get into a charter school, okay? The public school system is built, as I understand it, and I don't know everything. There's a lot of stuff I don't know. But as I understand it, the public system is for the public. If that system is undercut, underfunded, underappreciated, undersupported, it's kind of like saying, okay, well, I want you to take this this Volkswagen Beetle and enter you into the Indianapolis 500. It's not going to work. And the reality is that it's not just a local issue. We're competing globally. And so it seems like, and this is just my opinion, and I hope I don't get in trouble for saying it, but it seems like we ought to cater to our larger audience. And our larger audience is our public. And I hope that this is the start. I hope that the people who can make the changes are listening and will listen, and more than that, that they'll actually do something to benefit these students and the ones who come behind them.
You guys, we have time for about one more question. So whoever wants to get up and make that comment a question.
Hello, my name is William Gerard. I have a nephew that has autism. How are we going to school kids like my nephew that has autism that cannot stay still? I have a handicap, and I understand him, but will the teachers understand him and his condition?
One thing I love about the public school system is that we educate everyone, including your nephew, including my kids, everyone. And I have the utmost confidence, based on my experience, that elementary school teachers in this school district will educate your nephew, and they are trained to educate your nephew, and they'll do an excellent job with them.
And it's required that they provide you with the supports and the things that you need, that your nephew needs to be successful. So you have to make sure that you demand that whatever he needs to be successful, he gets. So talk to the counselor, talk to the principal, and don't take no for an answer. Just stay on them to make sure that he gets what he needs, because that's why we pay taxes. They're there to help us, and it's open to everybody. So we have to make sure that we are provided with what our children need to be successful, and you can make it happen.
And so many charter schools, unfortunately, coach, as they say, children out of their schools because they refuse to provide those services, or because they refuse to, even though these are state-mandated services that should be provided to students who learn differently or who have some sort of developmental disabilities, for instance. And, this is endemic in how charter schools operate. They coach children with autism or with learning disabilities out of their schools because, one, they want to prove again that they can run schools more cheaply than public schools are run, which misses the point entirely, and so that they can maintain a certain level of, certain schools in particular, maintain a certain level of test scores. So, that's another demand that we have to make. If charter schools are going to operate in our state, they need to operate under the same standards as all of the schools operate.